Good morning. Let me be the first of several people today to welcome you to the Liferay Spain Symposium 2019. You're here at a very special time at Liferay's history. I don't know if you know, but this year we're celebrating 15 years as a company. We have been doing this for a very long time, and sometimes it's hard to really grasp what a big amount of time 15 years has been. But 15 years ago, if you do the math, that was 2004, right? And sometimes, at Liferay, we've been doing this for a long time. We say, oh, it's our 10-year anniversary, our 11-year anniversary. But it's not until you kind of do the math that you realize how long ago that was. The other thing that I think is helpful, just to remember 2004, is to look back at some of the things that we were doing personally in 2004. And I thought that the best example was this. How many of you remember this interface? It's for a thing called Napster. So for the young people in the room who has never experienced this, it used to be that in order to connect to the internet, you had to either make a phone call to a server that would make a connection for you, or you had a thing called DSL. And back in 2004, we were all excited because this peer-to-peer technology would allow two people sharing files over the internet to download MP3s. And the best MP3s had this thing called variable bitrate, because you got the high quality of sound, but the files were really small. And in the days when it took like 30 minutes to download, a Michael Jackson track, that mattered a lot, right? This was the experience in 2004. All of you who are younger in the room, this is what you're accustomed to. You open a browser, you type in Julio Iglesias, and there you go. And you not only get his #1 song that has over 100 million views, but you get a suggestion of all of his best songs after that, right? And it's all on the cloud, it's streaming, and you have artificial intelligence helping you discover new music. Life is so much better in 2019, isn't it? On the business side, what were we talking about in 2004? Words like e-business were the buzzwords, right? You had guys like me standing up here and saying, we need to do e-business rather than digital transformation, right? And if you're a developer, the experience is the same. It's like, I don't know what they're talking about. I'm going to keep doing what I know how to do, right? We had things like service-oriented architecture and SOAP and WSDL. And these were supposed to be the things that would revolutionize our businesses through what we talked about then, which is now digital transformation. Now, when I do a Google search for DXP Cloud Architecture, I get this. Life is so much better in 2019, right? We don't have to look at these ugly diagrams anymore because we have Fernando Arias on a video explaining it all to us. Back in 2003, Liferay was not even on the Gartner Magic Quadrant, and Gartner couldn't even afford to make their diagrams in color. The Magic Quadrant was in black and white. And some of the companies that were leading this market, you don't even hear about anymore. Broadvision, Hummingbird, ATG, all great companies, all great technologies in their time. Now, 15 years later, they're not really there. So this was the environment that we came into in 2004 when we started Liferay. And at the time, software was sort of run by these large enterprise companies. Meanwhile, there were small groups of people all over the world, guys like Mark Fleury from France, who were starting to do something revolutionary that were scaring companies like IBM into doing some drastic measures. This article in Forbes was talking about how Mark Fleury was so competitive for IBM that IBM went and purchased a company called Glucode in order to compete with them. And so Mark was there, Red Hat was there, MySQL was making waves in the market as well. And here came Liferay. We were four guys in LA. We hardly knew anything that we were doing. And somehow through chance, we ended up in this enterprise portal market. Back in 2004, this is what Liferay looked like. And I distinctly remember being in a room so excited that we had built this fly-out menu in the top right. And at the time, I think we didn't think it could get any better. We thought, okay, this is the pinnacle of technological achievement that we have with Liferay 4.3, I think at the time. And today, Liferay looks a lot more like this. And we've changed a lot as well. Now when we look at this, we're asking ourselves, man, what can we do to make this better, right? So 15 years makes a big difference, both in our personal lives, in our business lives, and here at Liferay. One of the proudest achievements I think all of us have here at Liferay is that over 15 years, we have collected a great roster of customers. I remember back in 2012 when I was living in Germany and I was helping build the business here in Europe. I would go into any major European city and just walk down the street and be surprised because somebody had emailed me about a customer, and then I would see their name on a building or in an advertisement or on the side of a taxi cab. It was an amazing feeling, and I wanted to check if that was still true today, so I actually asked Maria Sanchez, our marketing manager here in Spain, if we could look for that here in Madrid as well. And so she actually went out on the weekend and took this photo for me. And I'm going to do a little game of audience participation. See if you can name a Liferay customer that you see in this photo. Anyone can shout it out. Any Liferay customers in this photo? Okay. Telefonica, I think I heard. Anything else? Okay, I'll help you out. So there's Telefonica, of course, which you know, who has been a speaker at Symposium. The Metro of Madrid has also been a speaker and a user of Liferay. Anything else? Sorry, can't hear you. Okay, Cofares. They're a major pharmaceutical provider in this country as well. You also have Liferay here in the corner there. Volkswagen, one of the largest automobile makers in the world, also a Liferay customer. And then we have a couple of tricky ones. First is Saint-Gobain, which is a manufacturer of automobile glass that's used in a lot of the cars that are running around throughout the city. And FCC, the sanitation group. And so there are countless companies around the world, as well as here in Spain, and even here in your very city, who use Liferay every day to make a difference to their business. It's been 15 years, and sometimes it's good to also remember how hard it's been at times. Liferay was started back in 2004, but we actually started working on the software as early as 2001. And just to put everything in context, I thought it would be useful to take a look at the S&P 500 over the last 20 years or so to see how Liferay has tracked with the general direction of the market. So we started in 2001 as an open source project. That was really in the aftermath of the dot-com crash. So if you know our story, Brian Chan and I worked at a startup. It went out of business. After that, Brian and I went our separate ways. He started working on Liferay. I was working for this other company. And everyone was trying to make sense of those times. 2004, we came back together along with Brian Kim and the other founders. We started the company, but this was still very much in that environment and that time when we were recovering from the dot-com crash. Later on, about 5 years after we did consulting and support, we finally figured out our subscription business in 2009. And in that time, we were wondering whether this business would take off, especially in the wake of the financial crisis, which happened around the same time as well, right? And we were very unsure, and yet over the last 10 years, we've seen the steady building and growth of our business and our revenue. And finally, in 2018, we introduced several new products to the marketplace, Commerce and DXP Cloud, and Analytics Cloud, as well as introducing new versions of DXP. It's been an emotional ride for all of us. I just want to give you a picture of that. Back in 2008, there was this famous slide deck that went around the market. It came from Sequoia Venture Capital. And they were basically telling their companies that because of the financial crisis, they needed to be a lot more aggressive in how they were managing their businesses. This was one of the emails that went in, that made its rounds among the partners. A guy sent an email to the portfolio CEOs, basically saying, you need to manage your money, you need to extend your runway, you need to really evaluate whether your employees are adding value, and you need to treat your money as if it's your own. And the interesting thing was that not only were they sending this email in 2007, but they also found an old email that they had sent back in 1999, 2000, which was saying some similar things. And so this was the environment that we went through, and yet on the other side of this, we've accomplished a lot. We have all of our great new products. We've been recognized in the market. And most importantly, I think, we've built a company with employees who are engaged, who are happy, who are really passionate about this business. And so that's what we're celebrating this morning, 15 years of building a great company. And of course, we couldn't have done it without all of you, our customers, our partners, and our community. Now, the title of my talk is actually, Why Liferay? And while it's nice to look at what we've accomplished in the past, that doesn't necessarily answer the question of why Liferay? And the truth is, a lot of us at Liferay ask ourselves this question very, very often. Wow, it's great that so many people have come to Symposium. It's great that we have all these customers. It's great that our employees love the company, but why? And I think in my worst moments, when I worry about the future, when I worry about 2020 sales targets, and when I worry about product releases, I can get pretty dark, you know. I wonder sometimes, like, as I look into the future, what's going to happen after this? You may have heard that WeWork, this big internet company who was trying to do co-working spaces around the world, they had to delay or abandon their IPO. And as a result of that, this article came out of the New York Times, where this writer was basically saying that in Silicon Valley, venture capitalists are saying, hey, we need to build profitable companies. We can't just think about having growth at any cost. We need to build profitable companies that have a viable business model. And so when I lay awake at night and when I'm worrying about our business, sometimes I think, you know, is Liferay just going to not be relevant anymore? Are we going to become this legacy technology that nobody uses? You know, and sometimes we talk to developers and we interview them. We say, oh, Liferay, aren't you guys a portal? And don't you use like struts and like, you know, why would I want to develop on that? And they don't see all of the new and innovative things that our developers are doing. And when I have a nightmare, I think it's the year 2034, and the only people using Liferay are hipsters who kind of saw what their dad used to use and think, oh yeah, that's really cool, and they start using it just to be ironic, right? And so we want to prevent that, and in order to do that, we ask ourselves this question, why Liferay? We want to keep being relevant, and we want to keep delivering value to all of you. So the first answer to the question is, who you are is who we serve as a company. And this seems like a very obvious point. This seems like a very basic point, but I think it's one of the most important things about Liferay. When you look at the customers that we serve, whether it's the Caixa Foundation, whether it's Walgreens Boots Alliance, a company like Carrefour or AXA, you have some things in common. You all tend to be multinational enterprises. That means you're not just in Spain, you're not just in Europe, but you're all over the world. You have different ways of going to market. If you're AXA, you might be selling insurance through agents. If you're a Suez environment, you have your customers, which are not only individuals, but cities, municipalities, and businesses. If you're Walgreens Boots Alliance, you sell through a network of pharmacies throughout the world. And because of these things, because of the nature of your business, you have very complex and sophisticated IT requirements, but also ambitions. You see and you realize that the role that IT can play is not just to build and implement what the business told you to, but to actually be a partner and a co-developer of the vision for digital transformation. And finally, you're working in situations where your customers, your partners, your suppliers are people you know. And they're people who work in teams of people, and the decisions and the transactions that are made on an account basis, right? And in a way, these are very boring things. These are like, well, like nobody wants to do that. I just want to do my, my machine learning and my AI. But the fact that these are the kinds of characteristics of the companies we serve is very unique to Liferay. If you look at the competitors on the market, whether it's Adobe or Drupal or anything else that's SaaS, they don't always do this as well as Liferay does. Secondly, why Liferay? Digital needs to transform the whole experience. We've been talking about digital transformation probably for about 5 years, and in the beginning, I think we all thought of it as cool websites, personalization, digital marketing, email marketing, or having some kind of a cool display in a store. And all of those things are part of digital transformation, but it's not the whole story. In McKinsey, they told a story recently in their research about a leading energy player who was able to keep 40% of customers who would have left otherwise by making a digital experience on their website. When I'm moving from, I don't know, let's say I lived in Malasaña and then I become very successful and I'm moving to Salamanca, I need to turn off my gas in my old apartment and turn on the new gas in the new place. I can do this in 2 clicks on their website. And just because of this one thing, they were able to save 40% of their customers from leaving. And if you're like a web developer or if you're a head of digital at your company and you're thinking about digital transformation, your first impulse is probably, great, we just need a new website, a new mobile app, and we're going to put a form in, make it really easy for the user. They can just click and do this. Well, the reality is not so simple, because let's really think about what has to happen in order for this to work. So, of course, you've got your customer-facing channels, which is what you usually think about with digital. But there's all the things that go on behind the scenes as well. This is what I call the company internal processes. And so the company or the customer fills out that form to request a change of service. What has to happen? That has to go into the back end. There's a scheduling that has to happen so that the worker can actually make it out to visit that customer. Well, guess what? If the process for confirming that service takes a really, really long time, then even if that form is really easy and quick, it doesn't matter. The customer is still going to be frustrated. Now, let's say that goes through and then finally the date comes back and you email the customer. Well, that time doesn't work for them, so they actually decided, I'm going to call them to change the date of the appointment. Well, if your back-end queuing system is not efficient in routing that call either to the right agent here in Madrid or in Spain or somewhere overseas, again, that customer is going to not have a great experience, right? And meanwhile, so you get the appointment time, and then you finally get it scheduled, service turned on, great. Well, now the billing stuff has to kick off. You need to change the customer's address. You need to make sure that you're charging them the right amount. So all of these things, both on the customer-facing side and on the internal company side, they need to work together in order to create a great customer experience. And so at Liferay, what we're thinking about when we present our products to you, when we plan our product roadmap, is how can we address all the things that make a great digital experience on the customer-facing side, but how can we also make sure that the experience is backed up by efficient and digitalized operations on the back end. The third point for why Liferay. I believe that digital needs to transform the organization. If you're a large enterprise like the ones that Liferay counts as our customers, or even if you're a startup or a university or some of the smaller organizations served by our open source community, you need to think about digital as transforming the entire organization. Again, referencing McKinsey, they're seeing that even the biggest companies with hundreds or tens of thousands of employees, several $billion in revenue, they're needing to transform by having two different ways of operating. When it comes to IT, some of you have to keep the lights on. You need to make sure your systems are secure, that your data is secure, that you have 99.99% uptime. But some of you need to operate at high speed. You need to get software out in front of customers, even if it's buggy, even if you're releasing in beta. You need to get that customer feedback almost in real time, and then you need to re-release. And this is not something traditionally that Liferay has focused on, but we're focusing on it now. And so whereas before we would think about how our products like DXP and Commerce would be leveraged to build things like customer portals and dealer portals and websites and digital commerce sites really quickly, now we're not just thinking about how are we going to build the thing, but how are we going to get it out quickly and then give developers and IT the tools to measure the customer usage, measure the performance, think about improvements, and then quickly iterate and get those out in real time. And then on the other end, we're also thinking about how can we enable business users with insight and data that allow you to take action based on what customers are doing. And so we've gotten a lot more ambitious in how we're trying to help your organizations. And we believe these are the tools that will help you change the way you work and change the way you think about the relationship between business and IT. Now, it's great that we have all of these products that provide a toolbox for IT and developers to build great solutions. What we've also realized, though, after 15 years of doing this, is that we need to do a better job of anticipating the way that you're going to use Liferay to build the solution. Here's one really small example just to make it concrete of what I mean. This year, we are introducing A/B testing to the market. And, you know, this is actually pretty late. A/B testing is a feature that other vendors and suppliers have had for a long time. One of the reasons why we took a lot longer to do it is because we wanted to get it right in terms of anticipating how does A/B testing solve business problems? How does it work really well with the rest of Liferay? So like, unlike other A/B testing tools, it doesn't just feel like something that was added on after the fact. And so hopefully you'll see that. But one of the ways that we've built in the business problem when we built the feature is statistical significance. I didn't know this, but in order for an A/B test to be meaningful, you need to at least have a certain number of people come in and see variation A and variation B. Until you've got, let's say, 1,000 or 5,000 or 10,000, depending on your use case, it's not a really meaningful result. And so we're doing this throughout the product, And we're also doing this in solutions for specific business problems and specific vertical industries. Here's just one example. So our team has been working on a solution for people in the manufacturing industry who sell their goods through a digital channel in a B2B business model. And so in this example, if you are this company selling a product like a machine saw, we don't need you to just take our social tools and our content management tools to figure out how to build a page like this. We can do it for you. We can figure out things like how do you bring together web content and PDFs to actually have a very helpful product page complete with social recommendations, comments, ratings, and so forth, right? So a lot of this stuff is going to come more out of the box for you. And if you're an integrator, it just means that the work that you do for your customer can be adding even more value on the innovation side. We're figuring things out like how do you navigate product hierarchies and categories? Or how do you wire together Google Maps and your store locations to create a dealer locator? Again, these are things that you don't have to build from scratch. Why Liferay? Reason number 5. Another thing that we've realized is that it's great if we provide software to you, but it's even better if we work with you and we help you understand how that software should be used, and more importantly, what are some of the business changes and organizational changes that you need to make along with it. This is a slide that I took from our new VP of Customer Success, Fred Tsai. He explains to us that the reason why customer success as a department is so important is that so much of the relationship with our customer happens after purchase, right? You know, a lot of times as software vendors, we get really excited when we close, you know, big names like Telefonica or the Madrid Metro system or Cofaris. We think this is awesome. We got this customer, and we celebrate. And then we kind of move on to the next thing, right? And meanwhile, that customer is going through a really complex journey, figuring out this portfolio of products that are going to help them do something really hard, which is change the way that they work as an organization. And so at Liferay, we're really thinking about how we can invest in your success. On the one hand, it means that we're going to hire and build up teams of people who can be more proactive in guiding you through our software, teaching you how to use the different configuration options, so that instead of us reactively supporting you and spending a lot of time figuring out what went wrong after a year and a half, we're going to invest time up front with you so that you use Liferay right from the beginning, and we avoid the heartache, and we also get you set up to be successful. It also means that if you're a technical person, if you're an enterprise architect, if you're a business stakeholder, we're going to give you engaging and dynamic online content so that you can manage your journey online through our digital customer journeys. So this is just an example of one of the journeys that we're building for DXP Cloud. And in this example, I'm an enterprise architect, and I'm in the kickoff phase of my project. I want to learn all the things I need to know before I invest all this time and energy into my Liferay project. I'm going to learn case studies and see what others have done before I go deep into it. I'm going to have checkpoints. I'm going to have opportunities for my account manager or my customer success manager to give me a call and say, how's it going? Are you able to navigate the project well? Do you understand all the technology? And then I'm going to have more video content that's really going to help me get through all of this stuff, right? So customer journeys, this is meant to really guide you through your relationship with Liferay. We're not going to leave you hanging. There's going to be real humans that also go with you in this journey so that we ensure your success. And finally, I just want to close again by saying how amazing it is that we've been on this journey together for 15 years. If you've been with Liferay just for a year, if this is your first time, or if you've been with us even before we're a company, I think it's important for you to know that we're building a different kind of company. Looking back on the 2003 Magic Quadrant compared with 2019, the landscape has completely changed. Whereas before, the big companies that we were after were like IBM and SAP. Now we're competing with companies like Adobe and Sitecore and Salesforce. And just thinking about that, like completely different companies, completely different markets, completely different ways to add value to the customers. Recently, there was a news that Acquia, the commercial company behind Drupal, was acquired by a big private equity company. And if you're not familiar with Vista, this is the same company that took Marketo, which is a very successful B2B email marketing company, and then they sold it to Adobe, I think 2 or 3 years later. They bought it for $1 billion and sold it to Adobe for $4 billion. So they really know what they're doing, right? And on the one hand, I'm sure it's exciting for Dries and their team that they're going to embark on this new journey with the equity company. And yet at the same time, I can't help but wonder how it might change the nature of Drupal. At the same time, we hear in the US, there's a group of company leaders, and they put together this statement of purpose. And they basically said, hey, we're the CEOs of Apple and Amazon and all these other companies, guys like Jeff Bezos and Tim Cook. And they said, you know, even though we've been living under this mantra that we have to care only about our shareholders, we want to do something different for the future. We see climate change happening. You know, we see all these young people who are having a hard time making a living. We see maybe sometimes that our customers aren't completely satisfied with the service we provide. And we believe that we need to have a new way of looking at the different stakeholders in our company. Yes, our shareholders matter, but customers, our employees, our supply chain and our partners, and also the communities where we do business are equally important. And when I read this, I was both excited and skeptical, because these are billion-dollar companies, they're public, they do have shareholders, and ultimately they're going to care about their quarterly earnings, right? And yet, at the same time, I was really excited because I thought, you know, in a lot of ways, this is what Liferay's been talking about for 15 years. And when we think about helping people reach their full potential to serve others, to make a difference in our communities, to change the world, or to make a dent in the universe, as others have said, that's a huge task. And there's no way that we want to do it alone. And yet, if we can get these big companies to be doing this as well, to make this vision a reality, that would be something really amazing. I stated earlier that the most important reason why you want to invest in Liferay is that who we are, or who you are, is who we serve. And I mentioned, you know, all of these big companies. And when I was in the back kind of reviewing my talk, I thought, well, you know, does this make us look like we're selling out? We started with open source, and we were this company that was able to help all kinds of different organizations. And now we're just talking about these big companies, right? Does this mean that Liferay has abandoned our community? And yet when I realized our history, I thought, no, actually, the reason why we have localization in Liferay is partly because the community here in Spain needed Liferay to support English and not only Spanish, not only Castilian, but also, Catalan, as well as French, and so you get the idea, right? It was the European community who first showed us that we need to have software that supports the localization. It was working with Educa Madrid where they said, we want to make these sites that the teachers can kind of control, but actually the main thing is controlled by the central administration, and then parents can log into that and students can log in, but when the parents log in, it's different from when the students log in, right? It's a very complex organizational model. It's a very complex permissions model, and we built it for Educa Madrid, but then we went into companies like AXA, and then they said, well, we have this situation where, we have the regional headquarters, but then we have these local agents, and we want to give them some control, but we want central IT to lock certain things down, and we don't want them to kind of make a mess of the sites. And we were able to go in there and say, yeah, we've got that. And the reason we were able to do that was because of groups like Educa Madrid, or because all of you in the community were doing the things that you were doing for the organizations you serve to make Liferay stronger and better. And so as we kind of take the moment to celebrate 15 great years, I just want to end by saying that it is our privilege, it is our joy, and it's frankly a lot of fun to build this company with all of you. And as we look into the next 5, 10, 15 years, my greatest wish is that all of you are going to do that with us. Thank you so much for what you've built with us. Let's keep going together.